Hey everybody, and welcome to Don't Copy That Floppy, your weekly video game news podcast, broadcasting Fridays 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm your host, Lex, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Booge.
We've got so much news to talk about this week, and a little bit from last week, because we missed that episode, and gosh dang it, I wasn't going to let that go. So... we've got news about Nintendo and new hardware, followed by Amazon making an MMO. Then we're going to be talking about PlayStation name changes, followed by PlayStation new hardware that we all knew was going to happen, but now it's like, actually, they said it's going to happen, so I guess it's like you're actually going to happen. Hooray!
Yay.
Followed by a little bit of hope for those Telltale Games employees who are making The Walking Dead. And after that, Microsoft is making a streaming service. And after that, Microsoft is buying more companies. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some Diablo merchandise, because I just couldn't pass up an opportunity to talk about Diablo. And then we're going to close the show out by talking about some video games that just came out and games that are about to come out. So, let's start it off with Nintendo, everyone's favorite company that makes cute plumber video games.
That's all they make. That's it.
That's the only thing. I don't think they've ever made anything else.
They made cards like 100 years ago.
With cute plumbers on them, I hope.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So, we have a report from Polygon from October 4th. New Switch hardware coming in 2019. Basically, the Wall Street Journal did an interview or a report about this, and because you have to pay to access the Wall Street Journal articles, I'm not using that one, but that is where this officially originally appeared. And other people commented on it, including Polygon, and we have some quotes here. So, Wall Street Journal is reporting that a new version of the popular Nintendo Switch hardware will be arriving next year, according to suppliers and others with direct knowledge of the plan. There are a few other details, but the new hardware revision would improve over the current model. God, I'd hope so. And said, quote, "The current Switch uses a lower-end liquid crystal display without some technologies that are standard in more recent smartphone LCDs. Updating the display with these technologies would make it brighter, thinner, and more energy efficient. The updated Switch isn't expected to adopt the organic light-emitting diode, or OLED, panels used in Apple's iPhone X series."
You know, it's funny. It isn't until this moment that I actually knew what those words stood for, what those letters stood for.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, I feel like I had heard that in the past, and I sort of vaguely knew that LCD stood for liquid crystal display, but this sort of reminded me of that, and I'm like, man, what kind of glorious future do we live in where the screens of our devices are made of liquid crystal?
No, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Or diode panels.
Organic light-emitting diodes.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's they're gonna upgrade the LCD screen. It's gonna be more energy efficient. That's good. That means the battery will last longer. Hopefully, they will also upgrade the battery, which would be good. Let's see, what else does this talk about? The Switch sold almost 20 million units, which was their projection. We actually talked about that a couple months ago, as I recall. And yeah, so second half of 2019, which I guess isn't really a surprise, because there was a lot of speculation that Nintendo was going to upgrade their hardware, because it just makes sense to, in small increments, because that's also what they do with their 3DS line, is they do that all the time.
They make some baffling decisions when they upgrade it, but yes, they do. Things like the 2DS. No, yeah, was it the 2DS? The one that was like, they're like, it's for kids, it doesn't have a hinge.
No, I think well, maybe. Actually, that might be true. I know that they made the 3DS, and then because it was expensive and people didn't actually care about the gimmick of 3D, they removed the 3D version of it, and then there was a later iteration that just didn't have that.
Right.
But I remember they did also make one without a hinge. That was odd.
Yeah. Yeah, because Peter Brown bought one, and I was like, why.
Well, he is quite young, so it makes sense.
He is a young man. He just recently turned 30. Young man. But yeah, so I don't own a Switch. You do. You own a first generation Switch. What other problems do you have with the console on a hardware side?
On a hardware side, its battery life is my biggest problem with it. I guess this is more of a software glitch, but there's a lot of problems with controller pairing when you have multiple people using multiple Joy-Cons.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a pain in the butt, but yeah, I assume that's like a software fix that they can do. There's problems with the dock. I wish the dock was like less of a cheap piece of plastic. It's it's so cheap. And there's accessories could be a lot better. It could be easier to charge the Joy-Cons. There's a lot of stuff like that for peripherals. Mm-hmm. But for the console itself, the actual brick that is the Nintendo Switch, just a better battery is really all I would need for that. I was watching a video, I think it was a Rooster Teeth video, where they were talking about how they would very much like Bluetooth technology built into it. And that makes sense. Hey, if they built in something for headsets, they could build in a headset port.
It doesn't have a headset port?
No, we already talked about this before with their stupid...
oh, right, the Splatoon bullshit.
Yeah, so you have to use your phone, and you have to use like a special dongle to plug your headset into your phone, and it's a huge pain in the butt. So if they just released a new version of the Switch that had headset port hardware built into it, that would solve that problem entirely.
Yeah.
So that would be good if they did that. And then they can abandon that stupid app that no one cares about.
Mm-hmm. But what do you feel about the HD Rumble?
Listen, I can feel multiple ice cubes in those controllers. So
do we need 4K Rumble?
Listen, you can't see in 4K. You definitely can't feel in 4K. So I just don't think it's worth it.
I don't know what kind of ice you make, but my ice is 4K.
4K
all the time.
ice only.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I my only problem is battery life. I think I've actually had a problem with my Switch recently, where there was like I'd charge it fully, and then I wouldn't use it for like 3 or 4 days, and then when I went to use it again, the battery was dead. And I couldn't figure out why it was doing that. And I think I figured it out. I still have to finish testing my theory. So far it's been a day, and the theory has held true. But what the Switch does is you can either turn it off or put it into sleep mode. If you put it into sleep mode, the battery actually drains more than I wish it would. But it doesn't drain too much. But all of the background processes of the system are running, including updating software and system stuff. And the place where I actually put my Switch at night is just outside of the wireless network range of my house, like just on the edge. So I think what's been happening with it is it decides to do an update, and then it has spotty connection to the internet, so it just keeps trying to reconnect to download the data, and that's what's killing the battery.
That would make sense.
So I put it in airplane mode, and we're going to see how that works out. But I am a little worried that it's a bigger problem. And if it is a bigger problem, then that's a real bad glitch, because I've had that thing less than a year.
Right. Yeah, that would be very unfortunate. Yeah, I think it's... I wonder if the new Switch will look any different. That's something that I think... I'm trying to think, because, I mean, every console manufacturer eventually makes like a different version of the same console. Like, you have Sony always does their slim version. Same thing with Xbox. And I'm trying to think, when Nintendo upgrades their hardware, do they ever change the look of it?
In terms of their DS line, it does, but not drastically. It changes pretty... until they decided to have it not have a hinge. For Peter Brown's sake. Until they decided to do that, it was very, very minimal in terms of the cosmetic changes. And I hope that they actually don't change it cosmetically hardly at all. Like if they make the basic brick maybe a different color, so you can identify that it's a second generation Switch instead of a first generation one. But otherwise, I'd rather they not change it at all, because the size is really kind of perfect. And then you run into the problem if you change the shape of it in any way. Like, how are the Joy-Cons going to fit on that? Do you have to buy new ones for the other generation? And that's horrible and a huge pain in the butt. And will it fit on the old dock? Yeah, so I really hope that it's the dimensions stay exactly the same, and they just miniaturize some of the stuff inside of it to fit more stuff, which is totally possible.
That's true. That I mean, because like unlike when I think of like Sony and how drastically different their like the same console, just different versions of the hardware look. Same thing with Xbox as of recent. And then when I think about Nintendo, it's like the big difference there is that oftentimes with Nintendo, the hardware is a key component of the gameplay or the experience of using it, whereas like Xbox and PlayStation are just tiny little computers that, you know, they're just there for processing the game. Yeah, it's interesting because like we never had a like a different look. Wii U never had a different look. Same thing with like GameCube. Just the handhelds really have changed it up, and they've changed it up in great ways because there'll never be a greater console than the clamshell Game Boy Advance.
This is true.
It was a great console.
So, moving on to Amazon. What's Amazon doing? They're making an MMO. Did you even know? You know who knew? Pornhub knew.
Of course. Pornhub, you know, a lot of people are concerned about, like, you know, chief justices and presidents and stuff. It's Pornhub that's going to rule the world.
Oh, definitely.
They know everything.
Have you seen their analytics? They know what's going on.
Yeah. It's great. I love it.
So this is a story from Engadget from October 4th as well. And yeah, it turns out Amazon is developing an MMO called New World. So it's sort of a fantasy supernatural colonial setting. That's how it's described in this article. So apparently Amazon's New World has been in the works for some time, and while there's no release date as yet, some leaked footage from a closed beta gives us a look at what it's like to play the MMORPG. The person who leaked the footage posted over 2 hours of gameplay on Pornhub, of all places, and YouTube channel Less Than Epic distilled that to 9 minutes of material. So my problem with this story, and this is completely my fault, is I didn't find out about it until Monday. And at that point, this footage was all gone. It had already been taken down from the internet. So I didn't get a chance to watch any of it. I've only seen screenshots. And this article talks a little bit about what we saw in it in terms of there's a, you know, you see the people taking down a bear, but then also fighting a zombie. We have a screenshot of them taking down the bear, and man, that bear is massive.
That's a big bear.
Yeah, jeez. So it's interesting. I understand why Amazon is doing it, because as we know, Jeffy B owns Twitter. No, he owns Twitch.
He owns Twitch.
He probably also owns Twitter. He owns a lot of stuff.
Probably.
But he owns Twitch, and they make all that money off of people streaming stuff on Twitch. I'm sure that Amazon is thinking, what if we made money coming and going by making the game that they're playing on our streaming service?
Yeah, and it's actually kind of interesting because Amazon Studios has been around for a while, but there's never been much talk of what they're actually working on. I get their game studios. I can't remember. It's been at least a couple of years that they announced that they were forming a game studio, and they got some pretty big people. I believe that there's some executives from Microsoft that they poached and put in there. So yeah, this is, and to my knowledge, they haven't really released anything. So this would be a good view of what they might be working on. Fucking weird choice, I have to say. MMO colonial supernatural stuff. Cool. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
But that's definitely not like I figured that they would have been like, it's Amazon Battle Royale, you know, like only the best Alexa can win, and 100 Alexas enter, and only one kills everyone.
But would they? Why wouldn't they make a? Why wouldn't they make a Dota clone or a card game clone?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. The card game clone would be perfect because you could just buy the cards right off of Amazon. Yeah, this is weird. This is weird. I wonder how much of an MMO it really is going to be, because like people don't make MMOs anymore. Like like, you know, when you classically think of like the WoW killer, like when people used to say all those years ago. It'll be interesting if it is like a straight up MMO game.
Yeah, I don't. The article talks about how it's a classless system, which I don't know. That could be interesting. It's and you kind of just actually let me find the point in the article where it talks about it. Let's see. Naturally, given the game's genre, there are survival and character progression elements, including skill leveling. Though it doesn't have a class-based system, the crafting appears to ape Skyrim a little, including using a tanning rack to make leather from hides. So, yeah, it does sound like a very, very similar to Skyrim type of game. And, I mean, I guess people do keep buying Skyrim, so I guess they like that. But that seems very old hat at this point to me.
Right, that's what, yeah, it definitely does. Like, you know, gotta get those new those new trends before they die out real quickly. But yeah, this is interesting. I think it's funny that picture looks horrible. I'd like to have seen the footage, because all of this, if you take out the fact that Amazon's making it, all of this just sounds like something that would be like an asset flip cash grab on Steam, like,
or some like small time company trying to kickstart something.
Right, yeah, like they're like, we want to make, you know, Rust essentially or whatever, but with this weird shit. Yeah, this does not sound like the kind of thing that'd be coming from Amazon. This could be, I mean, I really want to see the footage, because I want to see how far along it looked like it was. Because this may just be like a prototype. This may be just something they're seeing if they can make work, and it'll never, you know, see the light of day. Or if it is something that they're going full steam ahead on. I guess if the person put up like over an hour of footage, then it's probably pretty well developed, I would have to think, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's in closed beta, then it's in beta. So
right.
They've got to have something.
Yeah.
They talk about how there's a lot of like gameplay space to run around in, lots of different environments, probably most of them mimicking environments from North America, if this is supposed to be like, you know, New World type colonialism.
The New World
stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's a kind of genre and location I'm just not particularly interested in.
No.
But if it's done right, I could see it being good, I guess. Sure.
Yeah. You don't want to fight giant bears with conquistador helmets while wearing conquistador helmets, I should say?
Not really. Although if the bears were wearing conquistador
yeah, I was going to say.
That would be pretty good.
That's scary. Then we're talking about some serious horror shit.
The bears are going to conquer the Mayan civilization.
Yes, exactly. It's gold, glory, god, and hibernation.
So, okay. Let's talk about PlayStation Network and naming yourself.
Names. So, finally, this is a big one for, not me really, because I don't own a PlayStation, but for a lot of people, this has been a big deal. Sony has finally confirmed that PSN name changes for PS4 is a thing, and here's how they work. So this is from GameSpot, October 12th. If you ever wanted to change your PSN online ID on your PS4 but were frustrated at the lack of ability to do so, there's some good news on the horizon. Sony has announced it will be testing a new feature that will allow you to change your PlayStation Network name. The much-requested PSN online ID change feature is currently entering PlayStation Preview's program before rolling out more widely to all users. As of now, the feature will only be available to PlayStation users that have registered as testers for previous PS4 system software betas. For those that do get access, you'll be able to do your first change for free. Changes after that will be $10 US. For PlayStation Plus members, it will cost $5. To make the change, authorized users can access the feature through the settings menu via the profile page in the PS4. You'll also get the ability to display your previous PSN ID alongside your new one so your friends can recognize you. This is a choice users will have to make. Once you decide to display your old ID or not, you won't be able to change this. And then there's a weird caveat. Another caveat is that the new feature won't be compatible with all games. It will be compatible with PS4 games released after April 1st, 2018. And, quote, the majority of the most played PS4 games released before this date. PlayStation is making it clear not all PS4, PS3, and PS Vita games are guaranteed to support the feature, so users might see issues or errors in certain games. If you run into any issues with the change, PlayStation will let you revert back to your old ID for free. This is, so if you're not part of the PlayStation ecosystem, this may all just sound insane to you, because you can't change your fucking ID. What are you talking about? So this is a problem that PSN has had for a long time. And it started back with the PlayStation 3 when the PlayStation Network was launched. And so, like with Microsoft or with most systems that require you to make an ID, what happens is it asks you for what ID you want to use. Like that, this happens in like Twitter, and this happens with Microsoft with their Microsoft Gold and all this stuff. When they ask you for a name, you put in whatever name you want, and then behind the scenes, it generates basically a huge string of numbers and letters, and that's what the system identifies you as. It doesn't care what your online ID is. They just take that big string of numbers and letters that once you've made your account, and they stash it away on their servers, and you can change whatever whatever name is presented. It'll always just keep that original string of numbers and letters. That's your ID as far as the Microsoft system is concerned, right? So it's no problem. You can change your name as many times as you want.
Sure. But
Sony, in their naivete during the PlayStation 3 launch, didn't do that. And when they asked for your ID, that's the ID that they hooked everything else about your account onto. So your game progression, your cloud saving, your achievements, everything, your payment information, all these things were linked to literally the ID that you put in when you started your PSN account. So it's been this huge damn problem that they can't unfuck that, basically. They can't pull those things apart, and they can't let you change your name because then they would lose all of the data that is tied to your name. So it's been a thing that people have been haranguing them for a long, long time, and it seems like they're kind of finally doing it, even though there's going to be some strange caveats about it. And I guess thank God, because the real problem is, and there was a PlayStation podcast I used to listen to called Podcast Beyond on IGN, and it was they used to talk about like, please Shuhei Yoshida, let me change my horrible PSN name. Because, and there are people who would write in with horrible PSN names, like, I can't change it. And a lot of the problem that a lot of people had is that, you know, they were 13, 14, 15 years old when they got their PS3. Now they're in their 20s, and they still have Bong Ripper 69 as their PSN name, you know? And they can't change it. So it doesn't matter if they're, you know, matured as people, physically and mentally. They will forever be Bong Ripper 69 on the PlayStation Network. So, yeah.
But why would I ever want to change my name from lowercase x, uppercase x, skill saws?
Yeah.
777.
Yeah, XXX.
Uppercase x, lowercase x.
Yes, you have to have the uppercases and lowercases, and then straight edge 69, sniper man,
Snipe Zors,
MLG Pro,
Elite Snipe Zor,
Elite Snipe Zors, yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know why. I mean, I've never changed mine, and it's been that for decades. So yeah, we'll see how this all rolls out. I'm sure there'll still be some problems with it, even when it comes out. But good for them for finally trying to do something about it.
Yeah. Cool.
Have you ever had any embarrassing online handles?
Oh yeah, my old Hotmail that I still have to use for stuff because it's linked into my PayPal account.
Mm-hmm.
Although I probably can change that without too much difficulty, but I just never got around to it. But yeah, there's that.
I was gonna ask you what it is, but then I realized we're on the internet, so I probably shouldn't.
Can't do it.
I'll ask you off the air.
Actually,
I think you've told me actually before.
Hey, listeners / viewers, there's actually a really easy way you can find out what my PayPal email is, and that's by, if you're watching on Twitch, scrolling down to the donate button.
That's pretty great.
It will tell you what it is.
Yes.
So, let's keep on talking about Sony.
Yeah, sure.
With this little quick story about Sony that just sort of confirms what everyone knew was already happening. Sony confirms it's working on the next PlayStation console. Yeah, duh.
Surprising nobody.
This is a story from Polygon from October 9th. Next generation PlayStation is necessary, says Sony CEO. Also, yeah, duh. So we have a quote here. At this point, what I can say is it's necessary to have a next generation hardware, says the Japanese man
Genichiro Yoshida.
Yeah, that guy. Sony's president and CEO in an interview with the Financial Times. Yoshida did not name the console, so there's no information yet on whether it will be officially called the PlayStation 5. It will. There's also no word on the release window, although John Kodera, the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, that's the official name of the company's gaming division, suggested in May that the next PlayStation is at least 3 years away, which is a story that we reported on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He said, we will use the next 3 years to prepare the next step, to crouch down so that we can jump higher in the future. Man, that's a weird metaphor.
I've never heard anyone ever say that.
Like, the only person who it makes sense to say that metaphor in this situation is Nintendo, because they make games about cute plumbers who jump.
That's true. Or basketball players.
No. Well, maybe. Okay, so if Dennis Rodman said it, it would be fine.
Yeah.
So, it's probably 2020, 2021. Yeah, at the time that we read that story, we talked a lot about it and how that seemed like an obvious thing that I don't know why that needed to be leaked to us, because, they were going to make another PlayStation. The console cycles may not be as necessary as they used to be, but they are still necessary in the sense that the company who's making the consoles needs to make money. So if they do not make another console after X number of years, they're not going to make money.
Right. Yeah, you have to keep the train, the money train a rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's you do that by making new consoles. Mm-hmm. If you stall out, then, you end up just making Sonic games for the rest of your life.
Yikes. What have you done?
No, not Sonic.
So there was some speculation we might not see a PS5 just because of the PlayStation 4 Pro, the third pancake, as I like to call it. I think Dan might have coined that term, but yeah, the triple-decker pancake.
The short stack.
Yes. So there was some speculation about that, but I was pretty sure even at the time that the console industry was not ready to move away yet.
Yeah.
From their console cycle model, because they've just used it for so long. The only company that I could see moving away from that model is Nintendo, but I don't 100%. I don't even think they are going to do that at the end of the day. But they are the only ones that I could see going in that direction. Yeah, it'll at least be a couple more generations before Microsoft and PlayStation decide that they're going to forego generations. Although I think that will eventually happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I mean, I think because for as long as we've had console generations, it's usually because that computing technology has moved at a pretty steady pace, at least when it comes to like graphical and processing capabilities. And they usually make these new consoles once that they can find stable solutions with processing and memory and graphics. And yeah, I don't know what the future would look like where there isn't generational consoles. Like, a lot of people talk that that consoles were just going to turn into basically like iPhone releases. Like, there was just going to be one platform that just got new upgrades to it, and that's what people thought when the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Microsoft, the Sony, what was the Xbox one?
Scorpio.
The Scorpio. Well, it ended up being the Xbox One X. That's what it was.
Yeah, that was it. Terrible.
Microsoft's doing some good shit. We'll talk about that in a couple seconds. But Jesus Christ, their naming game. Like I was gonna say when you said it's not known whether it will officially be called the PlayStation 5. I was like, what if Sony just got like kicked in the head and they did a 180 and started naming things horribly like Microsoft does? And they're like, this is the PlayStation Aqua or something stupid like that. Anyways, I forgot what I was saying because now I'm just thinking about horrible things. Oh yeah, so a lot of people were thinking that it was basically just consoles are just gonna become this iterative thing, and even at the time when people were saying that, I'm like, I can't even really see that, because if that's the case, then those are just basically generational consoles anyways, right? Like the only difference is that they're coming out more often. So yeah, I don't know what the world without generational hardware looks like. It'd be weird. Like, is it just like a thing with a bunch of USB ports you just keep on plugging things into over the years to make it more powerful? I mean, actually, no. I can tell you what the post generational hardware world looks like, and it's called owning a PC
Yeah.
and upgrading it
Yeah, that's
every once in
exactly
a
what it
while.
looks like. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
No, I think it either looks like that, or it looks like, as we were talking about earlier, the way the Nintendo handheld market looks, where every couple of years they're like, here's a slightly newer, more powerful version of our thing, and if they find a way to do that and make the consoles cheaper every time there's a new iteration, I think that people will probably buy into that model, because, like you said yourself, there's like the iPhone thing. People buy new iPhones even if they have a perfectly good iPhone that works fine, and those are not that cheap. So
No, if you got an extra $2,000 burning a hole in your pocket.
yeah, so I think that they'll probably they think that they can probably do that, and I think they probably can. It's just going to take, an extra couple generations of the way things currently work for them to get to that point. And it's going to be too bad, because it's going to create so much waste. I mean, all hardware manufacturers that do sort of like annual iterations of their stuff create so much waste, and it's just very disappointing.
Yeah, it's just mountains and mountains of plastic and silicon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see. I wonder, like, because the video game industry and the console industry specifically have defied reason and predictions for decades. Like, people are like, oh, their consoles are dead, and all this, and it's just never true. It just keeps on trucking along, and then keep on making new versions of consoles and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. I think things will become a little bit more. They're already becoming samey because there's not as much proprietarial. Is that a word? Proprietorial hardware inside these boxes, anyways.
I think it's proprietary.
Yeah, it is. That it is, right. I like proprietorial, though. That sounds more stupid. I think, like, the guts of these boxes are looking more and more like PCs nowadays, anyways.
Yeah.
Like they're all using the same stuff. It's not like the days of the cell processor in the PS3, where nobody could make any games for it because it was hard as hell to to program for. Now it's like, yeah, everything's going to run in Unity or Unreal, and the guts are basically just NVIDIA parts. And and if hopefully someday when RAM becomes cheaper, more RAM in them too. Although that may never happen again.
Don't worry, I hear you can just download more RAM if you
can download more RAM.
If that's what you need. So it's free.
Oh,
why not?
It's free RAM. Yeah.
Let's talk about Robert Kirkman.
Do we have to?
He's not bad. Come on.
No, he's a good guy, from what I know. I don't really read the comics. This is from Engadget. Robert Kirkman's studio will finish Telltale's The Walking Dead game. Despite Telltale's effective shutdown, which we reported on, they shut down very quickly and with very little notice to their employees. Pretty fucked up thing to do. But they shut down. The Walking Dead, the final season, will carry on, and with help from none other than the Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman's studio. Skybound has revealed a deal with Telltale that will see it finish the game. While there were few details, initial details, a spokesman told Variety that it would work with the members of the original development team to finish the story. Kirkman himself saw it as almost a matter of necessity at the New York Comic-Con panel. Quote, "We can't lose Andrew Lincoln and Clementine in the same year," he said.
Yeah, there's a quote that if you don't know anything about Walking Dead means nothing to you.
I don't know, because I've not been with the show for a very long time. Although I think I remember who that might be. Skybound has been involved with Telltale's game since the outset, so it's not surprising that they would swoop in. This is as much about providing a satisfying end to the story in its wheelhouse, as close as you can get in the zombie-filled dystopia anyways, as it is an act of kindness. Still, this would be bound to be a relief if you were worried that the flagship The Walking Dead game would go unfinished despite being so close to completion. I think it's good that they're picking it up. Wonder how it'll come out, though. Like, it's gonna be. I think Telltale had a very clear voice and vision with their games. It'll be interesting to see if Skybound can replicate that.
Well, hopefully, what they'll do is they'll like hire back that staff.
Yeah,
because I'm sure that staff is still just jobless currently, and then it'll just be the same people making the game. So why would it be any different in any significant way.
That's true.
But it's actually interesting. I totally forgot to find the statistics that I meant to find that go along with this, because Dan and I were doing bonus content, which you can find on our Patreon page if I become a patron on there. And we were talking about Telltale and the fact that Dan actually went and looked up their sales figures for their games. And it turns out the only game they ever made any money on was the first season of Walking Dead.
Jeez.
Like,
That's
all
crazy.
of the other ones were just diminishing returns, especially considering how much bigger the budgets got for them and how many more people they hired. So their strategy really had been, since the beginning, to just throw more and more people at the problem to hope that they could just make more. But yeah, it's... So the later seasons of The Walking Dead didn't even do that well. I think, what was he saying? The Guardians of the Galaxy game, which I had forgotten they made, because...
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. Sold around like 20,000 copies or something.
Oh, jeez.
Like, nothing.
Not
so
for
low.
not enough for a 300-person studio.
No. So so I think this whole thing about Telltale being this, premier game company really was just a smokescreen.
More or less, yeah.
It wasn't even so impressive that they were able to fool consumers into thinking they were selling a lot of stuff and that they were very successful by putting out all these releases. But it was really impressive that they were able to fool investors and people that they could get intellectual property rights from into thinking they were a successful game studio. Because that, to me, is that I will give the management of Telltale Games a whole lot of credit for being able to pull off that con as long as they did.
It is a tough con to pull. Although a lot of their IP were from people that really didn't know much about video games, so they might have just been like, we don't know what a fucking video game company does. Here, have Batman. Like, like the only ones, there's Borderlands and there was Minecraft that they had, and those, I'm surprised that they pulled off those cons. But yeah, like for a lot of, like, I don't know, the people who own the rights to Game of Thrones, they don't know what the fucking how video games are made. They're just like, oh, we saw the Walking Dead thing was really popular. Make a game for us now, please. But yeah, it was a lot of it was totally a sham. But even all the fucking problems, they had good writers, because not all the games, but some of the games were well done. The Game of Thrones one wasn't good, but some of them were. And I did like The Walking Dead. I mean, the first season is, I think, a very great game. And then the second season was kind of meh. But I want to play this last one because it closes out the story and all that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Skybound, because it's like I'm sure that's a weird like rights holders thing too, because like Skybound owns The Walking Dead, I think, outright, and then they were like leasing the rights to Telltale, who now closed. So now, but they also are going to use Telltale's engine and their stuff that they worked on. So it's like, I'm sure it's a mess of paperwork to figure all that crap out.
Oh, probably. Although I'm sure it's a little easier just because Telltale is officially closed. So easier.
It's
to
like
get
a yard
access to
sale
their
at this
stuff.
point.
Yeah.
So good for Skybound for picking that up. Robert Kirkman, I don't know a ton about him because I don't really read the comics, or any of his comics, or comics in general, because I'm not a fucking nerd, Lex.
Oh, shit.
I only read real comics like Saga and anyways, Robert Kirkman seems like a cool dude, and he really seems to really hold his properties dear and takes care of them, making sure that they don't get shafted. So.
Yeah, and he has the money to do it because with The Walking Dead, how successful the comic is, made a lot of money off that. Then the TV show and how successful that was. He can afford it. So cool, very very good.
Very good.
And I hope that all those people get rehired to finish that game, so at least they get a little more work. They get to, finish out what they started and get to actually have a buffer time between, like, when they know they're going to get fired. So they can be like, oh, okay, if I'll be out of work in 6 months, I'll plan for that.
Right. Yeah, that'll be awkward for them, I think. They'll be like, all right, come back and finish the game, and then I guess you got to go.
Yeah.
Or some of them might get hired on full time at Skybound Games. I don't know. What else has Skybound Games done?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Because yeah, what's the other big comic that Robert Kirkman makes? It's Infinite.
I
think.
didn't know he made any other big comics.
I think that's the
I
other
know
one.
he
It's like a
makes other
superhero
comics, but big is not a word I would use to describe any
Yeah,
of them.
maybe not big like The Walking Dead big, but the other thing that he did. Anyways, I'm rambling. Let's talk about Microsoft. Microsoft.
So hot off of the success of their what is it called? Their Netflix's game service.
Game Pass.
Yeah, Game Pass. They've decided that Microsoft's new game streaming service XCloud has been announced.
Great names again. Great names.
XCloud. That's less horrible than some of their names, but it's still not good. So this is from GameSpot. This is from October 11th, and it basically just talks about how they're going to make a streaming service very similar to what is it called? The PlayStation's streaming service. They have one, and I'm forgetting.
Yeah, PlayStation Now.
Yes. So this is it's not going to work. Let's put that right out there. It's interesting because what they're going to try and do is say, okay, here we go. Here's a quote. The project aims to bring console-quality gaming to PCs, consoles, and smartphone devices. So what you're going to be doing is you're not just going to be streaming this gameplay to your console, but you're also going to be able to stream it to your PC, or you're going to be able to stream it to your smartphone so you can game on the go with that. There's all sorts of stuff about like how Xbox One controllers can connect to Bluetooth devices like smartphones so that you can still play with a controller and not a touchscreen, although there will still be touchscreen connectivity options with this stuff. Let's see. There's an official trailer that shows a little bit of that, and they talk about how this service uses Microsoft's Azure as a backbone to set up new data centers with customized hardware that uses the parts of multiple Xbox One consoles. Azure has data centers in 140 countries, so Microsoft feels it is already in a strong position to roll out the service wide scale. It's also developing ways to combat latency. The current tests running at 10 gigabits per second. The ultimate goal,
gigabits.
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to make streaming available on 4G networks. Microsoft also notes the intention is for developers to be able to make their games available through xCloud without requiring any additional work from them, not unlike how it handles backwards compatibility with Xbox One. So here's the problem with all this. I totally believe that Microsoft thinks, oh, we have all these data centers. We have so many of them. We have the server hardware. We can do all this stuff. We can stream all these games. Here's your problem. Maybe in some countries this will work. In Korea, I'm sure this will work fantastically.
Sure.
But internet infrastructure in the U.S. is garbage.
Yeah. Yes.
And many other countries too, but the U.S. most notably for Western countries, terrible. So the bottleneck here is not what Microsoft can do, it's what we as the consumer can receive through our devices. And that's why they talk about how they're like, oh, we want to bring down latency, we want this to be available on 4G networks. And that's good that they're thinking about that, but with modern AAA games, I don't think it can be done.
No. And it's been I think to clarify, the internet service in the United States is garbage. I'd say that it's garbage in some spots. I'd say that it's inconsistent is the thing.
Sure.
There are places where you can get great service if you're willing to pay an ass load of money, as long as you don't get your data capped. And then they're like, oh, we're going to pay more. We're going to throttle your service. It's a bunch of fun. Monopolies are great. Yeah, and I think the thing is that we've seen it not work many times. I was looking up because, we have Games Pass, not Games Pass, but Gamefly, which was one of the first ones to try this a long time ago. Never worked. I think they're still around, but it never really worked well. You have the GeForce Now, which has been around for a little bit now, and you have PlayStation Now. And they've all tried it, and they never work perfectly. They kind of work, but first of all, you have to have pretty fast speed internet, and it's never quite perfect, right? It's always just a little off. It's just enough that it's going to grind your gears after playing it for a little while.
Well, the other funny thing about this to me is that with Game Pass, Microsoft successfully circumvented this whole problem.
Yeah.
By saying, hey, you want to rent these games, then just download them and then play them whenever. That was like the perfect solution to this, because it means you could go on, you could play new games, you can try out games, but you don't have to deal with latency issues.
Right.
So it's funny to me that, like, oh, we did that properly, now let's do the wrong thing.
Right. And I wonder how much this is, because like it's a thing where big companies will just try stuff out. They'll make branches of their companies just to make sure that they have a foot in the pool in case all of this takes off. I wonder how much they're going to back this up and be like really about it and have showings at E3 about it, or how much it's just like, we're trying this stuff out in case it becomes a thing that's viable. We want to already have, some infrastructure set up. Because you have like, I don't know if they mentioned it in this story, but you have Google basically trying to do the same thing with Project Stream.
Yeah, they tested it with Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Right. And if there is any company that I think might in some weird way be able to pull it off, it's Google, because they're like, tech wizards. But still, I think that I wonder if this is Microsoft really pushing for this the way that they really push for Game Pass, or if they're just kind of dabbling in some technology, kind of like they do with the what's their AR system that's never going to come out?
HoloLens? Was that
HoloLens? Yeah,
never going to come out. But for Phil Spencer's sake, I hope this is just dabbling. And also, we had news. Aside from the Google announcement of Project Stream, we had news that PlayStation is going to start offering the option of downloading the game instead of just streaming it, so functionally aping Game Pass.
Yep. Yeah, I think we're at this interesting inflection point where everyone's trying to figure out ways to sell games without selling the physical games. Basically, everyone's just trying to figure out how to be Steam. They're trying to do what Steam's been doing for a very long time. Not just that, I shouldn't say that, but they're trying to find new and different ways to get games to people. And like you said, I think that the internet in the United States is just not there yet. It's not there yet in a lot of places in the world. If we can get there, then yeah, I hope to hell for a world of that I never have to own a physical game. I just have a subscription service and I just stream whatever fucking game I want from somewhere, and that's it. That's all I have to do.
And that's the thing. Eventually, we're going to get there. We got there with movies, and that works fine. But considering the span of time and technological leaps between when people started mass consuming movies to when we got movie streaming, it's going to happen for video games eventually, but we're like, I don't know, several decades off.
Yeah, we're still in the original Netflix period of video games, where you get the movie in the sleeve or something. We're just coming out of the VHS era for games. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think that it doesn't matter how much technical wizardry you throw at it, how much expertise and engineering know-how. I think the infrastructure, like Comcast, has to do better at first before anybody else. And that's never going to happen because those companies are fucking horrible.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so let's continue talking about Microsoft with a little acquisition that they're trying to make. Ooh, an article from our boy Jason Schri-Schri from our boy Schri-Schri.
Our bay Schri-Schri?
Yes. From October 11th, from Kotaku, obviously, because that's the publication he writes for.
Yes.
Microsoft is close to buying Obsidian. These are from inside sources that Schri-Schri has access to. So Microsoft is finalizing a deal to acquire the independent development studio Obsidian Entertainment, according to 3 people briefed on the negotiations. We don't know if ink is on paper yet, and plenty of major acquisition deals have fallen apart in the final hours, but those close to the companies believe it is all but done. So, for those who don't know, Obsidian made Knights of the Old Republic 2. They made Fallout New Vegas. They more recently made Pillars of Eternity and Pillars of Eternity 2.
Crowdfunded them.
Yeah, and I totally understand why Microsoft is gobbling them up because they've been acquiring a bunch of game studios. I think this article mentions the studio that made Hellblade, which is, what is that, Ninja Theory?
Ninja Theory.
Yeah, Ninja Theory, and also Playground, who made Forza. And I understand why they're buying them. It totally makes sense to have this company that's like a great RPG making company. But I just want to say for the record, please don't buy Obsidian. Please don't buy Obsidian. I will do anything. Phil Spencer, please don't buy Obsidian.
Are you just worried that they're going to ruin it in some way?
I don't think so. Here's the thing. I don't think they're going to ruin it in the same way that an EA or an Activision would ruin it. Like, if EA or Activision was buying Obsidian, I'd be like, oh, well, Obsidian's about to close, everyone.
Yeah.
That's too bad. But no, I don't think that's what's happening. But, as we've talked about many times recently especially, console cycles, they go in these cycles, and in those cycles, and so too in cycles goes the good guy personas of these companies. So right now, Microsoft, they're a good guy. Phil Spencer, he's wearing all those graphic tees with blazers. He's a great guy. But next generation, 2020, 2021, when that PS5 comes out and then Microsoft brings out their console, who's going to be on top? Is Microsoft going to be on top because of all these game acquisitions they made or company acquisitions? Probably. They'll have a lot of good exclusives by then. And then they're going to start acting like buttholes, and then they will close Obsidian.
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas,
we've talked so many times about the circle of hubris that happens in the games industry.
Whereas here's the alternate scenario. If they don't buy Obsidian, Obsidian has less money, which means they can't make big, groundbreaking, cool RPGs. But by 2021, they aren't shuttered. So
right.
So here's the thing: why Obsidian is probably super happy about this acquisition. As this article states, in 2012 they were in some real financial trouble because they were out of money, basically, and that's why they had to crowdfund Pillars of Eternity. And because Pillars of Eternity was so wildly successful in crowdfunding, it effectively revitalized the company. But even revitalized Pillars of Eternity 2, there's nothing super crazy graphically happening in that game.
No, it's an impressive graphics, and it's impressive what they pulled off graphically, because it really does look like those old Infinity Engine games, but it's not like, The Witcher or something.
Yeah. So if they get acquired by Microsoft, there's a strong possibility that, with the launch of the next Xbox console, we will see like a really cool, BioWare at their peak style RPG with like fantastic graphics and like really great stuff. And obviously how well that does is going to affect the longevity of Obsidian. But I still really worry that Microsoft, good guy Microsoft, is going to turn into bad guy Microsoft in the next decade. And then
turn back into Terrence, what was his name? The guy before Phil Spencer, the asshole?
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Terrence something. I was going to say Terrence Malick, and I'm like, that's a director. Fucking. Yeah, this is, I'm also, I'm a little on edge about this. I think I side more to the this is good side. But, Obsidian's one of my favorite developers. They make some of my favorite games. I backed Pillars of Eternity 1. It's a fucking amazing game. I think... I agree that, things can turn. But I also... I know the people, not personally, but I know the people that run Obsidian. Like Fergus Urquhart. I don't know how I pronounce his name. But these are guys that came from Interplay. They got shuttered, and they started their independent studio so that they could basically survive on their own. I think that they wouldn't accept a deal unless it gave them a lot of freedom and creative control to do their own thing and maybe even go their own way if they needed to. I trust, and this, I would be more concerned if they weren't at a place of prosperity currently. Like Pillars of Eternity 1, turned the entire company around. Made them profitable again, gave them an IP, which is something that Obsidian very rarely has, or never really had up until that point. They had their own IP that they could work on. They're known for doing basically other people's works.
Yeah.
And then Pillars of Eternity 2 came out, hugely successful as well. I think they're on top of the world currently, and then they're going to get they're gonna let themselves get bought up by Microsoft. I think that gives them more bargaining room in those kind of agreements.
Oh, certainly.
I would imagine, at least. So I trust that they are making good calls as far as like the kind of creative freedoms that they're going to be allowed. And I think that Microsoft wants them to be creatively free because they see the kind of games they make, and they're just the agreement is probably like, hey, we want you to just keep doing you, but we're just going to give you a shit ton of money, and please don't put this on PlayStation. You know, like
just make this exclusive to our console. Go hang out with Terry Crews. Exactly,
and I mean, Obsidian are already very much a PC focused company, so it makes sense to work more with Microsoft. There's some interesting things. Basically, one of the reasons why they almost got shut down, they mentioned this at the bottom, or Schri-Schri, Senpai Schri-Schri mentions this at the bottom of the article, is that Obsidian and Microsoft have a checkered history. Before the release of Xbox One, Obsidian was working on an Xbox exclusive role-playing game published by Microsoft called Stormlands. Tense disagreements between the two companies led Microsoft to cancel the game in 2012, and to some involved, it was hard to imagine the pair ever working together again. The Xbox department is under different leadership now, however, with Phil Spencer taking the role in 2014. And the move appears to make sense for both parties. Yeah, I think that they'll probably want, like, they're going to be like, yeah, your original IP is good. Here's a shit ton of money. Make something big and pretty, but with, the quality that you're known for. And we're not going to rush you the way that you were rushed on Fallout New Vegas or Knights of the Old Republic 2, where those games are notoriously short. They had such short deadlines that there's a lot of missing stuff in them because they just didn't have time to put it in. But yeah, they did other things like South Park Stick of Truth. They did a Sonic RPG that apparently is pretty good. They do an online tank game that makes them a lot of money. They're a strange company, but I think that when they're given their druthers and allowed to make what they want, they come up with some really good shit. And Microsoft probably wants that because, as we saw at E3, I think that they're looking over at Sony and being like, the one thing that we don't have that Sony has is a great roster, like a really great roster of first-party studios.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's what console makers are really thinking about a lot more in the past, I don't know, not even this generation, but the past decade or so, maybe generation and a half or 2 generations, because Nintendo's always had it. And Sony
they have their internal development.
Yeah, and Sony's really cornered that. And console exclusives are just really important in the current age of game consoles.
Yeah, because it's the thing that really sells it, essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Microsoft wants that. They want the equivalent of like a Horizon Zero Dawn or, something like that. They want their own big RPG franchise that'll just sit on their console alone.
Totally.
Probably the closest they ever came to that is their kind of buddy-buddy relationship with Bethesda, in that they've always been very, very friendly with Bethesda. Like, Morrowind came out on the original Xbox. That was like a reason to get, an Xbox. And I'm sure that at that time, like when Bethesda was a lot smaller, I'm sure Microsoft was like, yeah, you should buy them. Now it's too late. Bethesda's too huge, and they can't buy them now. Yep. But yeah, so I'm veering towards this is good for Obsidian, good for the games that they're going to make. I'm excited. But we shall see. Hopefully, good guy Microsoft remains. I have to say, best thing in this article were some quotes. So both Microsoft and Obsidian were asked about what's going on.
Yeah, this is great.
So, for Microsoft, quote, "We do not comment on rumors and speculation," said a Microsoft spokesperson.
Sure.
Also, quote, "Unfortunately, we don't comment on rumors or speculation other than to say that the Rumors album from Fleetwood Mac still holds up," said an Obsidian spokesperson.
So good.
So good. So, hell yeah. Hell yeah, Obsidian. Stay weird.
Stay weird, Obsidian. Okay, so last story. Diablo, the devil in Spanish. Story from Tech Raptor from October 12th today. Ooh. Diablo Reign of Terror merch found on Blizzard Store. BlizzCon 2018 is shaping up to reveal something Diablo-related and likely not just a Diablo 3 event with a fancy filter snapped on it. The Blizzard merchandise store has put up several new items with the label Diablo Reign of Terror. A poster and 2 t-shirts can be found on the store with that name, with images of Diablo. In Diablo 3, we have a more feminine lore terry. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to skip over this. Basically, the Diablo we're seeing in these t-shirts looks like Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 Diablo.
Yeah, looks specifically like Diablo 1.
Mm-hmm.
To my eye, at least.
What I would love to see is HD remakes of those two games. And we know multiple Diablo projects are in the works, and one of them was revealed to be the port to the Switch of Diablo 3. And as this article was saying, hey, with BlizzCon coming, they're probably going to announce some of the other projects they're doing with Diablo. So if we're seeing old school Diablo designs, that probably means HD ports of old Diablo games.
Probably.
Yeah.
Or something that we've not thought of.
I mean, maybe.
Blizzard pulls that stuff sometimes.
Every once in a while, they do. I'll give you that. But I think it's probably pretty likely that we're going to see some HD remakes, especially given the fact that we saw StarCraft HD remake.
That's true. That's true.
And maybe they'll announce an HD remake and then another new project. That would be fantastic. I'd love that.
Yeah, a lot of people keep on saying, like, oh, they're going to announce Diablo 4, and I'm like, fucking, knowing Blizzard, it's going to be another decade before that happens.
Yeah, no, I don't. Or, I mean, maybe they will announce it, but it'll be another decade before it comes out.
yeah, because they spend their damn time making games.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's going to be a thing. Maybe this is another expansion to Diablo 3.
Perhaps.
Maybe you go back in time. To the Tristram Cathedral.
You go back in time to when Diablo games were better.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you go back in time and they get rid of all the mechanics from Diablo 3.
Yeah.
And give you they change the name and it says Path of Exile on it, and that's the joke.
Ooh.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see. See what happens. I like the design. I like those shirts. They're very 90s.
Yeah. No, I think the design is fantastic, especially on the shirts. So I'm excited, man. I would love if they made a Diablo 2 HD remake. I would be so happy about that, and then put that on the Switch too. Oof, the best. Yeah, so good,
the best. I wonder if they would. Yeah, when is BlizzCon? It's not too long from now, right?
I honestly did not look. I have no idea.
No, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I guess. Diablo 4's been out for a long time, and Diablo 3's been out for a long time. So who knows? We'll see soon.
Oh, November 2nd to November 3rd.
Oh, okay, so right
very soon. Yeah. So expect some interesting. Hopefully, we'll have some interesting things to announce or report on announcements from that.
Yes. We'll see.
All right. So let's talk about video games that just came out.
Video games.
We had Forza Horizon 4 coming out for the Windows and the Xbox One on October 2nd. That happened. Assassin's Creed Odyssey came out on the 5th for Windows, PS4, and Xbone. Wow, that game, supposedly quite good, but just riddled with microtransactions for everything, all the time. But everyone still loves it because it's very well made, which means we will see more microtransactions.
Yeah. I also want to say that was sorry, I was looking at something else. You were talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. I thought I lost my mind. Didn't report on it, but it's the best-selling Assassin's Creed game of the current generation system games. Yeah. So, gonna see a lot more of that shit.
Oh yeah. Super Mario Party came out that same day for the Switch. Looks pretty cool. What else did we have here?
Does it look like it's not shitty like the recent Mario Party games?
No, it's got very good reviews.
Okay.
Let's see. They're not without a few flaws, but overall people quite like it.
Yeah.
WWE 2K19, biggest game of the year, everybody. The wrestling game for Windows, PS4, and Xbone. And let's skip around here. Oh, what came out today? None other. He's back from the dead, everyone. Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS.
He's risen from the grave.
Technically, that's a remake, so he is still dead in current continuity.
Yes.
So that's cool that that's out. Very happy to see Luigi's Mansion, and just very excited for Luigi's Mansion 2. We also had the actual big thing that came out this week today is Call of Duty Black Ops 4 came out for the Windows, the PS4, and the Xbox One. So
Woo.
That's it's the Battle Royale only Call of Duty game where you fight zombies and stuff. I'm curious to see what people think of that.
I'm sure it'll do well.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure it'll do well because it's a Call of Duty game, and at this point, people will just buy them because they're Call of Duty games.
Yeah.
Yeah. And coming up, what do we have here?
We got The World Ends With You Final Remix. I don't know if you ever played the original The World Ends With You, but that's a really cool game.
No, not familiar with it.
It's a Square Enix game where you play a roller skating kid in Shibuya and you stop demons.
Nice.
It's very very nostalgic. Came out a long time ago, but yeah, cool shit.
So let's see. We have Lego DC Supervillains. Lego games are always fun, especially the superhero-oriented ones.
There's like 5,000 of those games, aren't there?
There's so many, but they're all good fun, good goofy fun. Not particularly deep, but fun to play for a little while. NBA 2K Battlegrounds 2. That's kind of an awkward title, coming out for everything. That Starlink game, that's coming out on the 16th.
Oh, I'm sorry, you mean the Star Fox game?
The Star Fox game, yes. You can get that Star Fox toy and then be Star Fox. Star Fox, I can't let you do that.
That's the only reason that most people are going to buy that game, I think, is that you get to play as Star Fox.
Yeah, and then that's that until...
I'm sorry, a Warriors Orochi 4?
How could I forget?
Come on.
Okay, so that's it. We're done. It's over. Go home. You're already home. You're listening to this at home, probably. I'm sorry. So this has been Don't Copy That Floppy, video game news podcasting. Broadcasting Fridays, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/DCTF podcast. You want to check out our show archives, you can go over to our lovely benefactor site, chipbit.net, and check them all out there, as well as some of the other content on that site. Or you can go over to our iTunes by searching Don't Copy That Floppy, or you can go over to our YouTube by searching Don't Copy That Floppy podcast. I think that's the easiest way to get to it. And listen to all those things. If you want to support the show, there's two great ways of doing that. The easiest and freest one is to go over to iTunes and leave a rating and review. We'd super appreciate it. And the most expensive but also best way to do it is to go over to patreon.com/DCTF podcast. And you can give us money every month and get access to sweet bonus content of Dan and I yelling about things.
And you can learn Alexa's email.
This tree can learn my email. My embarrassing middle school email. Whew, so good. Finally, if you want to follow us on social media, we post when we're going to go live, and also when the episodes go up, we post that as well as the odd other post about when we find an interesting article or whatnot throughout the week. And the best way to find us on social media is to go to Twitter, which our handle is @DCTF podcast. Are you sensing a theme here? Okay. So I have been Lex. I have been joined by Booj. We're done. Thank you for listening. And until next time, Booj, what do people have to remember?
Senpai Schri-Schri's sources have said to not copy that floppy.